welcome to The Watcher. I'm your cult leader Tom Pot, and I just watched episode 1 and 2 of Hawkeye. And first of all, let me say, god damn, it's good to be back. I haven't done one of these since Loki. I was going to do it for What If, and then I didn't. So that, that might be, all I have to say on the quality of What If. But it's good to be back and back into the MCU. Of course, I'm going to be here for every episode of Hawkeye, which there's not even many left now because we got 2 out of the way in this first one. But of course, if you don't want to miss that, be sure to subscribe. And if you do enjoy this video, please do give it a like. Because I'm going to talk about how much I liked Hawkeye. I have to say, I really dug the first 2 episodes of this. I don't know why they gave us 2 episodes. Like with WandaVision, it made sense because the first 3 episodes were kind of slow with that. I think they did it because of scheduling for the Book of Boba Fett, maybe? I'm not sure, but either way, or maybe they figured there's not a lot of Hawkeye in the first episode, so they wanted that anyway. But honestly, I think they did a good enough job with Kate Bishop that people aren't going to miss Hawkeye, to be honest. That sounds kind of harsh. Now, I would say, I'm kind of predisposed to liking this one, because one of my favourite superhero comics of recent memory is Matt Fraction's. I just totally screwed up his name, sorry Matt. Matt Fraction's run on Hawkeye. That's the first volume, My Life as a Weapon. That's one I always recommend people if they're like, what is a good superhero comic? Because it's so easy, accessible, it's very easy to get into. You don't need all this prior knowledge. It's just a fun standalone adventure, and I loved that comic. It's a great run. I think it's like 5 or 6 volumes maybe. And the reason it's good is because they basically took Hawkeye and just turned him into an everyday schlub and his regular life, just, fighting with gangsters and that kind of thing. And a big worry I had was like, how do you... Like, this is a character we've seen do so many big things in the MCU. It doesn't have the same kind of continuity as a comic does, where it kind of doesn't matter at times. So how do you kind of tone him down? And they managed to do it expertly. And that's why I love it so much, and I'm excited to see what's to come. But let's get into it in a bit more detail. We started with our first episode, which was titled Never Meet Your Heroes. And of course, for Kate Bishop, that hero is Hawkeye. Because we start in 2012, and I think anyone who's an MCU fan probably saw 2012 and was like, oh, here we go, Battle of New York. And, that's what it is. Kate is at her apartment, or her parents' apartment, I guess, or home, I suppose. It probably is an apartment, though, because it seemed pretty high up. Because they're a pretty rich family, as we learn. And they're pretty much in ground zero of the attack in New York. Her parents are fighting. Her mother is played by Vera Farmiga, Eleanor, and her father is fighting. I think they were basically seem to be getting a divorce and fighting over custody. But it doesn't matter because her dad's dead. Now, sorry to drop that on you so suddenly, but yeah, he is killed in this battle. It kind of killed off screen basically. But the house is getting totally wrecked, so much so that a big wall gets blown out of the way, and the young Kate Bishop looks out the now newly created window, I guess, because there's a massive hole in the wall, and looks out and sees Clint Barton taking out the Chitauri with ease. And we get that slow motion shot and the look of awe on her face. And there we go. That is how Hawkeye became her hero. And as we mentioned, her father is killed. They kind of rush out of the house, her and her mom. We get to a funeral. I will say it was kind of very obvious anyway that this is the Battle of New York, because everyone seems to be saying like things don't fall out of the sky, and you're waiting for like the most obvious joke that like a Chitauri falls through the ceiling or something. But no, it's just obvious foreshadowing anyway. And the other thing is that her dad, is not great, because he did say he was going to protect her, and then he died. So way to let her down, Dad. No wonder she's going to have daddy issues and look at Clint as a dad probably. But yeah, at the funeral, her mom's like, I'm here for you, whatever you need. And she goes, I need a bow and arrow. And then, yeah! We get the CSI Miami 12. Not really. But it would have been like, it's a pretty, like, yeah, there we go, here we go, let's get started. Speaking of getting started, we got the intro, the opening credits. I mentioned this was a Matt Fraction comic. Its artwork is by David Ayer, who is an excellent artist. He also did some work on Iron Fist. Just a fantastic artist. And I point out because his very signature artwork is throughout this and kind of define the style of the graphic novel. And I hope they cut him a pretty big check, because all the promotional material, all the opening titles look just like his artwork and his style. So I hope they cut him some sort of check or deal, because I think Matt Fraction got a producing credit out of this, but I don't know if he got anything, so I hope he did. But either way, we get the opening credits. Now, normally I wouldn't fixate on opening credits as much, but these are pretty vital, because we get a lot of Kate's backstory here. Basically fills in the 12 to 21, I think was her age, 21, 22 years, because she's according to the credits, practicing martial arts and really skilled at it. She did a judo throw at one point, but I think it was just general martial arts she has. She's an experienced fencer and an expert gymnast. So she's got medals for all these things. It looked like her mother taught her to shoot, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I think it was just that maybe she was just standing by her. But either way, it doesn't really matter, I guess. She's good at a lot of stuff. So in the present day, we have now caught up to Kate Bishop, who's now all grown up because it is the present day, as I mentioned again. And she is breaking into Stane Tower, a clock tower named for Obadiah Stane, Jeff Bridges' character in the first Iron Man, who of course became Ironmonger. It says that he got this named after him in 2006. Obviously Iron Man took place in 2008, but that doesn't matter anyway, because if you remember, he's never outed as a villain. In Iron Man, they like fake his death. I don't know really why they kind of were like, don't out him as a villain, but they did. Maybe they were like, oh well, look, it's okay. We're not going to say you're Iron Man, and then Tony was like, I'm Iron Man. They were like, oh fuck it, we already weren't going to say he was a bad guy, but no, let's just go with it. So yeah, he's been very lucky to have a clock tower named after him, and in general, just be remembered fondly by many. So she's, I don't really know what the point of this was. But she's shooting arrows at the bell tower. Maybe she's just it's just an act of rebellion, or I guess to show off to her friends because her friends are watching. But she has her own kind of trick arrows, which are tennis balls and baseball bats. Not baseball bats, that'd be more impressive. Baseballs at the end of arrows, and she shoots one perfectly, hits the rope, rings the bell. But this was a bell that probably shouldn't have been rung because the tower starts to collapse and she is captured by security. So yeah, jingle bells, baby, because it is Christmas time. It's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens. Well, and the rest of New York, which is where we meet Clint Barton, who is not so much enjoying Rogers the Musical, a musical adventure of Steve Rogers. The sequence we get to see is the Battle of New York. He's not really enjoying it. In fact, he turns off his hearing aid. That's right. They finally gave Hawkeye a hearing aid, and if you were like, oh man, I wonder how he got that, they answer that later on, and it's kind of hilarious. But he's tuning out because it didn't look like a great musical, to be honest. Maybe Clint's just not a fan of theatre, I don't know. But it's like a recreation of the Battle of New York. Ant-Man was there for no reason, which is funny. But he's not so much enjoying it, so he excuses himself and goes to the urinal, leading to one of my favourite parts in the episode, an awkward fan encounter. And this is when I knew that they nailed everyday kind of Hawkeye. Because he's just at a urinal. First of all, he sees the word Thanos was right written in the graffiti, and he looks at it and goes, yeah, maybe he was actually. And of course, the classic celebrity awkward encounter. As he's at the urinal, a guy is like, oh, can I get a picture of you, man? My kids would love it. You're my favourite Avenger. And he just goes like, not the time. And then as soon as he goes to wash his hands, the guy's behind him again and goes, is now a better time? So he's excused himself. He's now actually outside getting some air. His daughter Lila joins him and wants to make sure he's alright. She thinks he's maybe upset because Natasha was there, and of course she is now passed on. Black Widow's dead, one of his best friends. There's no hint about that. I'm sure they have mentioned Nat a few times throughout the 2 episodes, but I don't know. Either way, he just seems to be upset, but he is looking forward to spending Christmas with his family, which is very good. Also now in New York is Kate Bishop. She has come to New York City. She's meeting her mom, who's of course angry that she destroyed a clock tower, and is going to drag her to a charity auction, kind of as a bit of punishment, I suppose. And she's told to wear a red dress, young lady. But she wears an all-black tuxedo because she's just, she's a stylish woman, I have to say. She's very, very stylish throughout these 2 episodes. But it does lead to her catching the attention of Armand III, who thinks he is, or she is, a waiter, which will actually come off later. So, because of this, she basically finds out that her mother, Eleanor, is getting married to Jack, which she was unaware of. And it leads to a bit of awkward tension between them. But so she goes out to kind of get some air, just like Clint did, I suppose, outside the theatre. And she sees a one-eyed dog. That comes back later, don't worry. She comes back inside and does see her mother arguing with Armand III. The third of at least 7, by the way. But her mother kind of ducks the question about what it's about. So she's obviously very suspicious. And because of that, she starts to tail Armand. And again, this is where her looking like waiter pays off. They think she actually is a waiter, and she's able to disguise herself as a waiter and come across what's really going on in the basement of this auction, which has Armand and Jack, a black market auction, which does lead to some fun encounters when someone's like, hey, who are you and who sent you down here? And she's like, oh, Gary sent me down here. just giving a random name. And then, of course, a Gary shows up and he's like, hey, I didn't send you down here. Who are you? And, of course, you're expecting her to just leg it. No, she's like, this is a problem. You don't know my name, Gary. Oh, it was brilliant. Again, it's things like that made me like, they nailed Kate Bishop. I love this character already. But at the black market auction, they're selling a dinosaur skull. It's kind of it doesn't really tie into anything, I don't think. But they are, more importantly, selling the sword of Ronan and the suit of the Ronin. Of course, Ronin was Hawkeye's character post Avengers Infinity War. He kind of went on a rampage after losing his wife and kids. We catch up to him in Avengers Endgame, and he's very remorseful for his actions. And they're bidding on this, and Armand III wins the sword. And just as they're about to auction off the suit, the wall explodes, and in come the Tracksuit Mafia, bro. The Tracksuit Mafia, bro. Also known as the Tracksuit Draculas from the comics. They're kind of an Eastern European Russian gang. They're hilarious. They were good in this. I'm hoping to see more of them because they're kind of pathetic but also kind of stupid and fun. So they're on the search for some like watch. We see the watch at some point. I didn't recognize it as anything. I thought she ended up with the watch at the end, but it didn't really come back to that, so I'm not entirely sure. But either way, in all the confusion, Jack grabs the sword. That's interesting for a few reasons. And Kate puts on the Ronin suit and starts to fight off the Tracksuit Mafia in a decent action scene. I think normally the action scenes are what people kind of criticize these Marvel shows for. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a bit creative. Her fighting the wine cellar. She was like knocking bottles through the slots at them and that kind of thing. So it was kind of fun. But I would understand if people said it wasn't anything too impressive. But either way, they get in a really big fight. She's kind of trying to escape. There's a guy that finds the watch outside the cellar. And as he's kind of about to pocket it, here comes our one-eyed dog who bites the guy and I think makes off with the watch. I'm not sure where the watch ended up. I thought the dog ran off with it, and that's why Kate Bishop runs after him, which, by the way, the Russians start to beat up the dog, and Kate goes loco and starts beating the shit out of them. And it was at this moment where I wrote down, she's dressed in an all-black tuxedo and attacking Russian gangsters after attacking a dog, which, you know, she's as much John Wick as Clint Barton, is all I have to say about that. Gangsters flee anyway. Kate kind of makes off with the watch, from what I can tell. I also have to say one thing. We kind of go back to Clint here. Again, Clint was not in that episode that much. This could have been another reason why they did more than one episode, because he's in the second episode a lot more. I really like the dynamic of him having kids. We haven't seen that with many superheroes. But him trying to balance his kids and also being like, oh, I gotta go fight, you know, bad guys. It's just really good. I like the relationship he has with his kids. I was slightly worried at first he was getting divorced from Linda Cardellini, but that doesn't seem to be the case. He's just in New York with the kids. They're having a lovely meal, which gets comped for Clint saving the city, which he seems pretty awkward about. As he brings his kids back back home before they're in New York, and then they're going to go back to, I don't remember where is Hawkeye from? Is it Idaho, Iowa? I don't know. Or is one of them the Hawkeye state? I don't know. He's going back to the place from Avengers Age of Ultron, okay, to fix a tractor or whatever. He sees a news report with Kate dressed as Ronin, and immediately kind of has to hunt her down. But in the interim, Kate has brought the dog back to her apartment and feeds him pizza. Therefore, Pizza Dog. Whee! That's what he's called in the comics, by the way. She breaks into Armand III's place after this to kind of do some investigative journalism, some investigation. And she finds Monogram Butterscotch. Dun dun dun. I always suspected. No. But that, of course, as soon as we saw that, we're like, well, someone's going to be eating those later. Thankfully, they don't hang it over our head too long. More importantly, and more interestingly, and more violently, she does find Armand III dead. Who, I'm going to get into his death in a minute. His maid walks in and she flees kind of unseen, seemingly. The maid doesn't see her, in other words, but it does appear that she is spotted going off later episodes. But certainly, she has been now seen by the Tracksuit Draculas, the Tracksuit Mafia, who see her and start to attack. And she kind of manages to hold her own and fight them off a bit. But I do like how they were like realistic about her fighting skills here. Like she actually fought off a few of them, but also she's going to be outnumbered the same way anyone that without powers would be. So she manages to find an open car and sits into it, which kind of protects her for a little bit. But they start to smash the windows. Wouldn't you know it? As you would expect, arrows start to fly. People start going down, and then wouldn't you know it? It's Hawkeye. Clint Barton is here. I'm actually, I don't know, I look really strange. At one stage it looked like he whipped the guy with a wet towel. I don't think that's what happened, but it looked really funny. But he beat the shit out of the guys, and he drags the Ronin clad Kate down an alley to kind of presumably beat the crap out of her and take the suit. And just as he's about to do it, her mask comes off, and he kind of stops, and he just goes, "Oh, come on." And she just goes, "You're Hawkeye!" And he goes, "Who the hell are you?" Credits. Dun dun dun. That's episode 1 done. And if you're wondering who the hell is she, will we find out in episode 2? I mean, you found out in episode 1, but yeah, episode 2 does pick up exactly where we left off. And this is where I want to talk about previously on Hawkeye. So this is episode 2, Hide and Seek. I talked about Armand's death. And this is really obvious, so I'm pretty sure it's a red herring. Or maybe not. That Armand III was seemingly killed by Jack, his nephew, because in the first episode when we see him, it looks like there's a spray of blood that would be consistent with a sword swiping across his midsection. Of course, we saw Jack take the sword in the last episode, and there's more hints towards the fact that it is him, so I assume that that's not him. Now the thing is as well, Jack in the comics is Jacques Ducosne. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not very good with French. Ducosne. He is swordsman in the comics, which, if I remember, he kind of basically is Hawkeye's. Yeah, Hawkeye started as a bit of a villain, I think, and it was because he was trained by swordsman at a carnival. Of course, that origin is seemingly going to be thrown out, but you know there is a chance that you could kind of coach Kate Bishop a bit, but I don't think it's going to go down that way. But yeah, he is a swordsman in the comic, which we get to see in the second episode, which we'll now talk about. Clint and Kate, first of all, have great chemistry. I really like these two together. And I like that he just doesn't care about her at all. He's like, he has no interest in her, aside from like, thanks, I'll take the suit. But of course, Kate is really starstruck. He basically says, like, you know, the person who wore the suit made a lot of enemies, so I have to take it away from you. But he also needs to be clear that there's no way you could be identified as the person who wore the suit. And she's like, no, I don't think so. But of course, she did come back to her apartment in the suit, which she was spotted doing. And as they are about to, you know, maybe sort this thing out, they are in Kate's apartment, and you hear Tracksuit Mafia outside screaming, "Kate Bishop, bro!" And as soon as that happens, a Molotov cocktail comes through the window, leading to one of the really cool moments. Again, what I like about the street level Marvel stuff and the stuff they're doing in these series is that the action can be kind of inventive. It doesn't have to be like too massive or over the top. I love this, like someone throws a Molotov cocktail and Clint manages to bust out the window, catch the Molotov cocktail and throw it back. It's just perfect. I mean, that's what I want, you know, something that's not outside the bounds of possibility, but that's just kind of fun and creative and makes our characters look pretty badass. But of course, it's too late for the apartment. The apartment starts to burn. She escapes with the dog. Thank God, Pizza Dog. If they killed off Pizza Dog after that episode, I actually would have not watched the rest of the show. I would have been devastated. I would have been an emotional husk for a couple of weeks. But basically, Clint is like, leave the suit there, I'll come back for it. And it's great. Clint is very unimpressed, even though Kate shoots some impressive trick shots. One thing she did try to do that failed was she shot like a fire extinguisher that was meant to kind of extinguish, you know, the fires, but really it just sent the fire extinguisher flying towards the Tracksuit Mafias. Of course, they were like, "Are you kidding, bro? That's all you got, bro." Oh, I'm sorry. It's going to be a long few weeks of me doing Eastern European gangster accents, but either way. They go to Kate Bishop's aunt's house. Clint leaves her there, goes back to the apartment to get the Ronin suit back. Of course, Clint wants to get home to his kids and gets home to Christmas. That's going to be a recurring theme, and I'm sure it'll be a happy ending when he finally gets back to his kids for Christmas. Or he'll be driving home for Christmas. Is that a song that people know outside of Ireland? I don't know. But there you go. Please don't hit me with a copyright claim, YouTube. I swear, that was not actually a CD. That was my own human voice. But yeah, it is cool here. I find it kind of funny because Hawkeye's celebrity in this, the running joke is that it's such minor celebrity where people are like, oh yeah, I know you, cool. Whereas if it was Tony Stark or anyone else, it was like, whoa! And I mean, obviously if it was Tony Stark, it'd be a big deal because he's, dead. But I was kind of thinking he might just show up to the police scene and they're like, hey, you're Hawkeye, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I need to investigate for the Avengers business. And they're like, go ahead, man. But no, he goes to a fire truck and steals their uniform and goes to the burnt apartment, but the suit is vanished. Vanished? It's gone. I'm going to stick with gone. I can't use these fancy words like vanish. It's gone, but he puts the suit back and he notices a sticker on the FDNY truck which says, what is it? Something LARPers? I'm trying to find the correct term. NYC LARPers, right? I could have guessed that actually. I should have just gone with my gut. Live action role play people. So he's like, maybe one of these dorks has stolen my suit, huh? And yeah, he he does. He finds it on Instagram of all places. There's a guy being like, "Oh, you're always saying I got a good suit. I got a good suit now." But it does leave some fun interactions as well with Kate and Clint Barton as he comes back to the apartment. He kind of gave her all the stuff to kind of clean herself off and bandage her wounds, as it were, not get infected. And yeah, she does that, but she does it wrong. So he kind of shows her how to do it. It's kind of interesting because he's justifiably annoyed at her. So it doesn't make him come off like a dick that he's so unlikable towards her in some ways. But it is because he wants to get home to his kids and basically, like, he says, you stole my Christmas, essentially. So she's standing in the way of him having a good Christmas. But I'm sure they'll grow to love each other or at least tolerate each other, even though it doesn't look that very like after the first two episodes. It does lead to some cool stuff, and Kate is really trying here. She drew some really awful sketches of the Tracksuit Mafia, which got a laugh out of me. They're so bad. They're like they obviously wanted to joke me that she's a bad drawer, but this is like a 6-year-old's drawing. It's really bad. And then of course she's like, "How's my apartment?" He says, "Crispy," which was fun. He finds the costume on Instagram, as we said, and he's basically going to hunt them down. Kate can't get him a hotel room. So he just stays there because her cards have been cancelled, which I'm like, again, really good, logic here. Because of course we'd go, Kate's rich, why can't she do something better than this? Apparently, her cards are cancelled. So he sends his kids a message, basically like he's going to be a bit late, but get ready to be packed and they're going to go home soon. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. He brings Kate to work, to her work, not his work. Not to like Avengers Tower, but basically he's like, you're not going to listen to me anyway, so I might as well take you to work and be safe there. Her mom works at like a security firm, and she works there as well. This is the moment I was talking about where it's like, what happened that you need to get a hearing aid? And it just goes through all the moments where he's been surrounded by explosions or loud noises or smashed through glass, and he's like, it's hard to remember. Specifically, but it was great. I also found another moment where and it's so they did such a good job making Hawkeye to just be like, oh, no one cares, it's Hawkeye. There's a little kid that sees him and goes, wow, a superhero, and you're thinking, oh wow, fine, he's gonna get recognition. No, the kid is looking at these costume clad superheroes, that you see in these dingy tourist spots in New York where they're wearing dirty costumes, and yeah, the kid runs right past them, and even Clint doesn't seem to care. It seems like he's used to it, and Kate is trying to make him feel better, and it's like, hey, look, they at least got a guy dressed as you, and he just goes, that's Katniss Everdeen. They couldn't even give him that. It's great. So he drops her off and basically gives her the number and says, if today goes well, I won't see you again. Don't text me or I'll block you. And she's obviously very disappointed. She wanted a kind of mentor-mentee relationship, but they exchange numbers and leave each other. Something I did find interesting here is he's like, I taught you how to do, certain things. I taught you how to dress a wound, and I think he said was it tail someone or shake a tail, which we see her do in the first episode. She tails someone, so that's kind of just a nice homage. So it's like, yeah, you didn't teach her that either. Although I think maybe she said chase a tail, but either way, or shake a tail, not chase a tail. Whoa. Kate Bishop, as I mentioned, has a lot of style. She's wearing this long kind of, I don't know, blazery thing. She's just rocking it, man. I think that this is a character people are really going to fall for. But Clint does not have the same sense of style because he goes to the LARPers and is forced to wear armor by a very pushy, bossy LARPer I think it's, again, this is the thing where it's like, man, Hawkeye they're just embarrassing him, man. Like, he's like, okay, I need to start that guy. And she's like, no, you're not. You have to wait until we're done. We're not done till midnight. And it's like, it's Hawkeye. He's like, he saved New York. He had to take down Thanos. And it's like, no, you better sign up if you want to disrupt our LARPing. But apparently they're all like, ambulance drivers, paramedics, and firefighters. So I guess he's always have a sign of respect. But the funnest thing about this was he signs up, isn't really able to give any of his info. He's like, that's a confidential email, I can't tell you. So he's walking around with a dodgy suit of armor and like a foam sword, and anyone's trying to attack him, he's just taking them all out with like ease as he walks like a guy in the rolling suit, and he's like, okay, take that off. And we can do this. Basically, he says like, we can do this two ways. I'm either going to fake kill you and take the armor, or I'm going to punch you for real and then take it anyway. But the guy kind of pleads with him. This guy called Grills says, like, come on, man, let me kill you, man. You're a hero and real. Like, give me this. I need this. This is all I have. And yeah, Clint does the good guy thing. He puts his modesty aside once again, and in doing that, he actually does a trial by combat and makes it look semi-realistic, and then lets the guy kill him. And takes the Ronin suit and gets to walk away. And again, it was kind of cool just seeing Clint be a nice, down-to-earth guy. Like, the guy is like, man, this is the best day of my life. And he's like, yeah, it was okay for me too. Yeah, sure, yeah, whatever. And the guy's even like, call me Clint. And he's like, oh, thanks, Clint. He's like, nice to meet you, Grills. See you later. So I'm like, oh, see, like, he's a likable guy. He's just a bit surly, As I mentioned as well, him having to do all this means that he's got to send his kids away. He's basically said, I'll be home for Christmas. I'll be driving home for Christmas. He sends them on their way. Basically says, watch out for your brother Nathaniel, again named after Natasha, as we learned in Age of Ultron. And yeah, again, he's still kind of annoyed with all this stuff that he's got to, still wrap up these loose ends that seemingly, by his logic, Kate Bishop has created, which, yeah, kind of has. So he has the suit back. Kate, in the meanwhile, basically is going to have dinner with her mother and now stepdad, and she says, okay, but I get to ask all the questions, I get to say the topic of conversation, etc., etc. But as she's doing that, she gets a call from someone, and she's after messaging Hawkeye kind of in a jokey, snarky way, so she was probably going to get blocked. But she gets a call thinking it would be Hawkeye, and it's actually the New York Police Department, and she's very cagey about like, oh, what if they think I was the person at Armand III? What if I killed him? But actually they're asking about the fire in her apartment, and she agrees to meet them tomorrow morning, which we never get to see, so maybe the next episode will involve that a little bit, who knows. And again, is that really why they're calling her there? So as we now pick up with her at dinner, she gets into a sword fight with the sword man, Jacques Dequenet. Oh god, I'm really butchering that name. Someday, this is the new arc of this run of the Watcher. Someday I'll get that surname right. So she challenges him to a sword fight, because he, of course, is also a pretty good swordsman. And as you can imagine, she's kind of kicking his ass, but he's, downplaying his skill. And he's like, oh, I'm not downplaying it. You're very good. Aha. But she waits until his mask is off and lunges at him towards his face. Oh, my God. But, of course, he easily parries her. And then she's like, see, I just proved he's a liar. And he's like, oh, well, I did lie about how good I was. Ha, ha, ha. And there's obviously that's still kind of tension between them, and to kind of ease the tension at one point, he offers her an Armand III butterscotch. Oh Lord, which is very well, it's such a specific plot point. Like, yes, we need monogram butterscotch, but I'm glad they got that plot thread out of the way. As I mentioned, they're really hitting the idea that it is Jack who kills him, so maybe it's not. Could possibly be Eleanor, and he's covering for her, but I don't know. Just seems a little bit obvious right now. Or maybe he's being framed, who knows. Meanwhile, Clint is in the middle of the street, just standing around waiting to be confronted by the Tracksuit Mafia, which he immediately is. And again, this is why I love the Tracksuit Mafia. They're so proud of the con. They're like, oh, I thought you could get away, bro. We found you, bro. And it's like, yeah, he was just standing there waiting for you to find me, a jackass. Oh, it's brilliant. So he gets attacked by her, or by them, I should say, sorry. He kind of just lets himself be attacked, and then he's taken hostage with a bag over his head and all that. Kate, meanwhile, is again trying to call Clint to say, like, oh my god, I think, I've got a lead about this murder. This guy's got butterscotch, baby. Word from word, that's what she says. But of course, she can't get a call through. And I think so. Someone either picked up the phone or was an answering machine, but it was like, Clint Barton can't come to the phone right now. So she's very suspicious. And thankfully, very convenient for the plot-wise, her phone has an app, thanks to the security firm she works with, that if she puts in a number, she's able to track someone. That seems kind of shady, but either way, it's a plot device that works, I guess, because she's tracked Clint Barton and now she's going to see if he's alright. He's tied up. He's telling them, I don't know who Kate Bishop is. I'm not the guy you think I am. They're like, you're Hawkeye. He's like, no, yeah, I am Hawkeye, but you're not looking for me. You're looking for Ronan. I'm not Ronan. And he's very kind of, chill about the whole thing. He's like, I'm asking you to speak to your boss and being very professional here. And they're like, you're tied up. We make the demands. And he just basically, as you would expect, comes out of the ties, which is actually, again, almost like a callback to Black Widow in the first Avengers movie. When she's tied up, she can easily get out of it. But he insists he's never met Kate, and at that exact moment, it's just going to fall from the sky. Yes, Kate falls from the skylight, and they're both then tied up. And it leaves us with the big reveal, I guess, at the end of the episode. It is a big reveal depending if you know who this character is or what it could signify. But one of the gangsters goes to tell their boss, and it's none other than Alaqua Cox, I think her name is pronounced. But as we should know by now, Alaqua Cox, is playing Echo. Now, this is one of the most interesting inclusions for a number of reasons, okay? Let's go into Echo a little bit. First of all, she is a character that is deaf. That's why you can kind of see her. She's like feeling the vibrations in that kind of wall of sound at the end of the episode. And also why the gangster is mouthing it to her very clearly multiple times. But she is a very interesting inclusion for 2 or 3 reasons. Number one is her connection to other characters. She was introduced in Daredevil, from memory. Or if nothing else, she is considered a supporting character in Daredevil. She's one of the characters who's very much tied to the Daredevil character. In fact, in the comics, she is the adopted daughter of Kingpin. Why that is interesting is because there has been a lot of rumors that Kingpin is going to show up in this series. I mean, that rumors were there already. Vincent D'Onofrio tweeted, like, I'm looking forward to this. I'm really excited for this show. It looks good. Which, is either going to be master trolling and he's not in it at all, or, pretty much confirmation that he is in it. And I would say if they're going to include Echo, why stop there when it comes to those characters? And yeah, pretty interesting inclusion. Echo has been, kind of villainous at times in that she has come against Daredevil, but generally she's something of a hero. She's actually even been a member of the Avengers at times. Another reason her inclusion is interesting is that in the comics, she has taken up the mantle of Ronan as well. Another reason it's interesting is the fact that, well, first of all, aside from her being deaf, like, that's not her superpower. She kind of also has a photo reflective memory, is that the term? Where she can do anything, kind of like Taskmaster, where she can kind of copy people. So she's very skilled at a lot of things. I would assume she's not the boss, but it would make sense if her boss was Kingpin. There are rumors going around at the moment that this is going to be the sort of reboot of Kingpin in the show, and that he's going to look more like he did with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where he was like, where he basically took up the whole screen and he was just a small head, like that big. The rumor is that he's going to be wearing a massive fat suit and enhanced by CGI, which I don't know how I feel about that, because Kingpin is a very grounded character, and I guess that's why they need to make him like unnaturally big. It's a delicate balance, though. I hope they nail that. Again, I don't doubt Marvel, because they haven't given me any reason to doubt so far. When it comes to character and costume design, generally speaking. But if Vincent D'Onofrio is back as Kingpin, that's great, because he's did a fantastic job. I love the Kingpin character. Daredevil is my favourite hero, so I'm really excited if that does come true. I heard some people suggest that, like, the hotel they're in is the hotel that he's in season 3 of Daredevil. I found nothing to suggest that at all from what I can look from my research, so I don't think that's actually true. But yeah, that would be great if he is back. Of course, he's the Kingpin. He's the boss of a lot of the underground families in New York, so it would make sense. I mean, if they don't put him in it, it's a real missed opportunity, in my opinion. The other reason Echo's inclusion is very interesting is, of course, she is getting, as confirmed a officially, she's getting her own TV series on Disney+. So this is pretty much the start of something big for her. And the rumour about that show was that it was going to be kind of how they retrofit all the Netflix heroes into the MCU, or at least Daredevil, which makes the most sense. So her inclusion here is very, very interesting, because she has got a lot of connections and a lot of interesting directions they can go in. And that is how we end the second episode. That is how we end this week's Watcher. Either way, that is the Watcher for this week. Of course, next week we'll be going through episode 3, so be sure to like this video if you had a good time and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Please come back for episode 3, because remember, I'll be watching. Take care.